Hi, my name is Mike Smith, and my company is Sales Coaching One. And I've got the privilege to be able to present to you a small presentation that'll hopefully help you in your business challenges and uh, adventure to grow your business. My specialty is more towards the sales side, and I want to thank Small Business Better for including me in this. And this has been a presentation that I've done several times for groups that have the same interests and challenges that you probably see in your business. And I call it it's time to look in the sales mirror. And one of the things I think is critical is for companies to know who their target market is. Do they really know their best prospects? Who will you be able to use their product or service the best? I find in many cases, businesses don't really focus enough on their best opportunities. They take a shotgun approach to growing their revenue, hoping that some of it will stick. In a lot of cases, businesses are good at what they do. They're not good at identifying how to grow their revenue. So, what we're going to try to focus on in this brief seminar is areas where you can, at the end of this program, start to think about your business and where you can put your energy that would give you a greater return on your time investment. So, one of the primary things that you want to take a look at is to list your top 10 prospects for the next 90 days. Depending on when you see this, we have very little time left in 2019. And going into 2020, you want to make sure you've got a good, solid business plan on how to penetrate the market and identify opportunities for your goods and services. So, we're going to try in this presentation to give you some ideas that will lead you in that direction. So, one of the things I try to get across to people and business owners is you don't want to be common, you want to be great. You want to be able to separate yourself from competition and bring value to your marketplace. And how do you do that? Well, the first thing, as we talked about in the first slide, the introductory slide, is you want to identify your top 10 prospects. Well, how do you decide that these are the top best opportunities for you? What are the benchmarks you use to decide a possible deal? What I mean by that is you can spend a lot of time chasing things that you think might be a good fit, but that's only in your eyes. You want to make sure you start to see things through your customers or your prospective customers' eyes. That's how you're going to be able to be more involved in their business, in their concerns, and problem solving for them. One of the things I think is most important in this whole process, and it may be detailed more as we go on, but people don't want to buy your product. I know that sounds crazy, but they have things already. They want to get the solutions for the challenges they have. And the way you present your products is the vehicle to solve those concerns. If you're just trying to sell them a product, there's no emotion attached to it. So as you decide who your best opportunities are, where have you been able to provide solutions that people had that they got emotional about fixing? What is it that was an emergency situation or a critical operating flaw that they wanted to get fixed? The benchmarks that you use to determine a possible deal is what are the solutions that I can provide with the goods and services that I offer that will get them in a better place for their business and help them be more successful. They don't care whether it's a widget or a 747. And truly, the cost of it is not the critical thing, it's the solution that they're looking for. If you had a sore tooth, you wouldn't care what it costs to get it fixed. You'd want to get it fixed. Well, if your customers or prospective target market have sore teeth, they want to get that fixed. You need to be the dentist that's going to find those sore teeth. Another critical measuring stick is what is the average closing percentage of the business you have on this list in the past? What I mean by that is if you have a target sales approach or a customer uh, list that you want to make possible overtures to, have you kept records of the percentage of those that you have gotten based on the presentations that you've done? It's critical that you know that because that gives you what your closing rate is. And a typical closing rate is going to be 25% to 30%, meaning that, one out of two or one out of three customers is going to end up, I'm sorry, one out of three or one out of four potential customers is going to end up being your customer. The rest of them are going to make another decision or do nothing. So you have to have three times the amount of opportunities to get where you want to be if the averages hold. The other thing that you want to do is when I put on here, when were they first put on the list? What is the selling cycle? How long does it take for them to make a decision? And that needs to be put into what we call your sales expectation, or in some terminology, they call it a sales funnel. So you know where you stand, and you also know what needs to be done next to change that opportunity into a customer. And then the last thing is, when are they no longer an opportunity? Have they bought from somebody else? Are they just going to do nothing? Have they gone out of business? Not every single person that you talk to becomes an opportunity. So you want to make sure that you have the benchmarks that measure whether they're a real opportunity, and then also the time frame, which is what's called the selling cycle, that's realistic to convert them into either an opportunity or a lost one. So I try to simplify things as much as possible, either when I'm training or when I'm working with companies, because basically it's all the same process. The thing that really is important for people to understand is revenue generation is not an event, it's a process. And I like to use sports analogies when I describe selling and doing training because it really is a game. And, if you look at all the professional sports or college sports or anybody that's been successful, they go in with a game plan. You have to know what you want to accomplish, and you have to be able to put your best plan together to try to get the most results. Otherwise, it's just spending energy with no return. And it really is very simple. That's why I say in this slide, selling is not smashing atoms. It's not really that complicated. We make it complicated because we try to overanalyze it. It's really based on a lot of activity and qualified activity. So the first thing you need to do is create more qualified prospects. A qualified prospect is somebody that you really have an opportunity to talk to about the goods or services that you provide. It's not just somebody who has a passing interest that might want to get some information or just will talk to you because they have nothing else to do. The thing about building revenue is you only have so many hours in a day to get in front of qualified people. And the key to this is qualifying, finding out exactly if you're talking to the right people. Do they have the right needs and wants? Do they have the resources? And I'll give you an idea in a minute on how you can find that out. That will be very simple, but it will be a key benchmark for you going forward. So you want to define the elements needed to become a prospect. Well, what are they? How do you figure that out? How do you ask questions to see if they're really a prospect? What do they say? What is it that are key indicators that you may have an opportunity to do business with these people? And you want to recognize suspect behaviors. Suspect behavior is somebody that keeps you coming back, that keeps asking you for more information, that really seems to be stalling and doesn't really give you a solid feel about the opportunity, but will be a tremendous time waster. The number one reason people fail in selling and the number one reason businesses fail to grow their revenue is they never learn to differentiate between what's a suspect and what's a prospect. A prospect can buy, a suspect cannot buy, but they will lead you to believe that they can. And I've been involved in selling myself and training people for a long time in my business. And also when I was in the corporate world, I was a VP of sales for an international office equipment company. And it's continually the same thing, is that sales people and corporate people and all the entities that are trying to grow their business get stuck because they get stuck with suspects and they're not doing a good job of qualifying to find out if they really have a prospect. So what you want to do is you want to create a map for yourself. It sounds like a basic thing, right? What's a map? Well, it takes you where you want to go. But in sales terms and revenue growing terms, I call it a monthly activity plan. And what that is designed to do is tell you exactly how many contacts you need to make to qualified prospects each month to achieve the revenue targets that you need for yourself or for your business or your company or whatever measurement tool you're using it against. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a person that has one thing that's selling pencils or that has 1,000 employees that's selling microsystems. The net effect of growing your business comes from the number of qualified prospects you can create and then getting them to come across the finish line and choosing you as their supplier. That's why you need to be able to bring value to what you're doing. Price is a concern, but it's not the reason that people buy all the time. And the last thing I have on this slide is train fleas. There's a an old example people talk about in training people that if you end up doing things that don't work and you keep doing them, sooner or later people will give up. Well, if you filled a can full of fleas and you put your hand over the top of the can, the fleas would be hitting your hand trying to get out. But the longer that you have your hand over the top of the can, the less feel you have for people hitting the top of the can from the fleas trying to get out. And then eventually you can just take your hand off the top of the can and the fleas have given up, they're complacent staying within the can. Well, this is what happens in selling and growing revenue is that people reach an activity level that doesn't give them the results they want to have. So basically, they're taking up space or they're just giving up. Uh, there's no shortcut to success. It's planned, qualified activity that will give you the results you want to have. So you don't want to get stuck in the can like the fleas did. Okay, so the map that I talked about is the monthly activity plan. Now, I know this sounds as if it's very slanted towards selling, but this is slanted towards an explanation of revenue building because all you want to do is take these steps and multiply it by the number of people that are responsible to have customer contact. And this is the way that you can drive your revenue to a higher level and hold people accountable, plus make it measurable. One of the basic tenets of sales management is that you can't manage what you can't measure. And you have to be able to manage activity in such a way that you can see where the results are coming from, not only for yourself, for your targets and your revenue growth, but also for your organization and your people if they are in sales, so they can see how to be successful. There is a way to do it no matter what the exterior influences are. Some of the best sales years I ever had was when the economy was terrible and everybody thought it was gloom and doom. Well, the product or service I was providing, companies needed. So I kept good records and followed up and understood what my opportunities were and what they needed. And sooner or later, they were going to need what I had. And because a lot of people had left the marketplace, it made it easier for me to get the sales because I had less competition. But I also knew what the customer needed and knew how to present it to them. So the monthly activity plan is how many contacts does it take to create a qualified prospect? This is where the difference between a suspect and a prospect comes into play. Uh, you can make a lot of calls on suspects and never get a qualified prospect. So you need to understand what a qualified prospect is and how to get to that person and move the situation forward. How many prospects are needed to close a sale? How much revenue is it? What's the average return on the sale? Uh, so typically, it's going to take 15 to 20 contacts to create a couple qualified prospects, and it's going to take 4 or 5 prospects to get a sale. It really doesn't matter what the product line is. That's typically the average across the board. And American Marketing Association did a study recently, and they found that in the marketplace today, that 63% of the people that you call on today are not going to make a decision for 90 days. So that means anybody that's being called on here at the end of 2019 probably is not going to make a decision until the first quarter of 2020, if they make it then. And on top of that, it doesn't guarantee the decision is going to be just for your product or service. It's just going to be a decision. So with a likely target customer, they can only do one of three things. They can buy from you, they can buy from somebody else, or they can do nothing. That's really the only thing they can do that will improve their situation. And on the bottom line I have here is, do you have the numbers from 2014? The reason I have the numbers from 2014 on here is because the that's 5 years ago. And if someone has kept records on 5 years of data on how many calls they need to make to get a prospect, how many prospects they need to get a sale, those numbers are going to be pretty accurate. But on top of that, those numbers are going to be consistent for probably anybody in that marketplace, because they've run across a lot of good times, bad times, good economies, bad economies, good products, bad products. So, in terms of creating a monthly activity plan, if you have 5 years of data and you've kept those kind of records, it's going to make it a lot easier. Unfortunately, most people have not done that. So the idea is, okay, what can I do now to start keeping those records and be able to use it to my advantage? Just as an aside, I started doing this for myself when I was in selling, because I was very fortunate to have a great trainer, a great sales manager, a great district manager. And what they found was, if you kept these kind of records, and they made sure you did, sooner or later you'd start to see the value in it. A lot of people see it as just a, a function of an administrative plan, and it takes too much time and it's not making me any return. But the truth is, your numbers are your numbers. And once you own what you're doing and you understand exactly how to use those to your advantage, it becomes your game plan. And again, like I mentioned, I had the best years, and a lot of times when the economy was horrible, because I knew what I had to do in terms of creating those numbers. So, you business owners, and we talked about the target accounts. These are things that are critical for your business going into 2020. Is to create this plan of activity, of target accounts, and what you expect. So obviously, you're not going to have these numbers for 5 years in most cases, but you can start keeping them now, because sooner or later they're going to fall in line, and you're going to be able to project what it is that you're going to do each month and each quarter, because you already understand where your business is coming from. This is the key to this whole thing, is understanding where your business is coming from and how you can get there, how it's going to help you guide your energy and your activity to be the most productive for yourself and for your company. Okay, here is the probably most important slide, or bit of information of this presentation for you to help grow your business. Uh, I have on top the title being the development of the map. Well, we already understand what the map is. It's the monthly activity plan that is derived from the numbers you need: contacts, prospects, quality prospects, presentations, and sales. So, how do you develop the key aspects for the map? The first thing, and absolutely the most important thing, is this first uh, line: find the man. Uh, that's pretty much a uh, slogan that you can keep in the back of your mind and use it. It's really an abbreviation. Obviously, it's dated, find the man, but The reason it's that way is man stands for money, authority, and need. So if you have those three things, money being they have the resources, they have the ability to either finance or write you a check or give you cash or put on a credit card, they can buy. Okay. The authority that the person or the people you're talking to or whoever you're involved with has the authority to approve a purchase of your goods or services without having to go to somebody else. And the last thing is the need. It's a need that either they know they have, like we talked about with a sore tooth, or it's a perceived need that you've helped develop by doing a good job of asking questions and qualifying and understanding their situation and explain to them that you've seen it before and it's helped you to guide that company or that business with the solutions you could offer that will get them where they want to be. Now, I want to spend another minute on this man. Probably the most frequent reason that businesses do not have the success in their revenue growth, their sales growth, their profitability growth is when they're doing offers, they're not talking to the authority. They're not talking to the person that can make the decision. They get caught up in the middle with people that are collecting information, that are tasked with contacting people to get quotes. They're getting uh, requests for quotations. They're the administrative piece of the final decision. They're not the final decision maker. So this is where it takes some courage. You got to be a little bold and get some backbone, but you need to ask the question, who besides yourself is involved in the final decision on this project? If you don't ask that question, you're going to get stuck dealing with a suspect. Do you remember what I said? A suspect can't buy, but they will let you believe they can. A prospect can buy. So that's why you need to get to the prospect in order for your monthly activity plan to have accurate numbers. Because if you're using suspects, the number is going to be all out of whack and they're not going to be consistent and you're going to be following uh, uh, a false path. It won't be an accurate path. So with that in mind, the money obviously is the resources, the ability to pay. The A is the authority. Can they make the decision? Now, if they can't make the decision, you need to ask them, well, who can? And sometimes it's a committee. So what I suggest in your development is that you need to stop right there and don't start talking about your solution or your products until you get a situation where you can offer it to the right person or the right group of people. Because if you don't, you can't expect them to present it as well as you do. You've got one shot usually to really do a bang up presentation. And a lot of times, if it gets passed off to somebody else, they don't have the same emotional attachment to the result that you do. And they can't answer the questions as well as you can about the product that you offer, the service that you offer. So consequently, it's going to lose a lot of steam. Uh, it's a very common thing, and it's very hard to discipline yourself to ask the question about who besides yourself is involved in the decision, but it's very important. The reason that you want to ask it this way, who besides yourself is involved in the decision, is because you don't want to offend the person you're talking to and let them think that you don't think they're important. This way, you're including them in the decision making. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, that is me. If they say that, then you say this. Okay, so if I understand what you're saying, if we can provide you a solution to your issues, you can go ahead and okay order for the company. You'll find out right then if they're the right person. Because if they're not, they'll say, oh no, that needs to be Mike. So then what you need to say is, well, can we get Mike involved in this meeting? Because Mike's going to have different concerns probably than the person you're talking to. Okay, so that's very important, is finding the man, the money, authority, and need for any good product, service, whatever it is that you're trying to offer. Make sure you remember that. The next thing is qualify, qualify, qualify. Ask as many questions as you can. Drill down on all their issues. Find all the opportunities you have. It's called finding the pain point. If you're familiar with the business they have and you know what kinds of solutions that normally they look for, don't just explain the solutions. Ask about the issues they have that your solution can provide. Because there's a little thing that is easy to remember, just like Find the Man. It's called make them sick and make them well. The way you make them sick is you talk about their issues, you qualify them by asking them about how serious they are about fixing them, how long they've known about it, how many people it impacts, what kind of profitability does it impact, all those kind of things. And then you can provide the solution based on what you already know are the problems because they've told you. You know, people will tell you how to sell them if you qualify properly. And that's a whole different type of training. And if you haven't learned how to do it, I would suggest that you find a way to qualify better because it'll make you have better results. I can guarantee it. And then determine the sales cycle. Depending on what type of product or service that you're involved in, the sales cycle could be really short, like point of sale stuff like gum and candy and soft drinks at a convenience store, or it could be like a housing project that's 20 years. So, in order to determine the sales cycle, you have to find that out in the qualifying. During that sales cycle, things are going to change. The time period might change. The needed solutions might change. The decision maker might change. The budget might change. So all those things impact the final solution. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to start out interested in be involved in the process. There might not be as many at the end. So it's very critical that you keep really good records so that you can always be on top of the situation, know who you're talking to, be a professional about it when you go back and meet with them so they can see that you've been involved in this process and you understand their issues. One of the slogans I like to use when I'm training people is you want to get on the same side of the desk as your prospect. Let them know that it's a partnership. You're not trying to just sell them something because that's how you get paid. You're trying to improve their situation and you're going to live with them until that happens. This is what customers want. They want advocates. They don't want salespeople. They want somebody who's concerned about their situation because they understand it and somebody they can trust. I hear a lot from salespeople now that they want to build relationships. And I say, well, that's important and that's what you should do. But the way you build a relationship is you build it through trust and that you know what you're talking about and you deliver on it. Because once you do that, the customer know they can trust you, and then you've built a relationship. It's not from necessarily a friendship type thing because they got enough friends. They want somebody to help them find a way to get out of the pickle they're in. And the last thing is establish your personal path to success. This is based on the activity ratios that we were talking about. The how many calls does it take to get a prospect? How many prospects does it take to get a potential sale? How many sales does it take for you to hit the revenue number that you need? How many sales does it take for you to get the level of earnings that you want, either personally or for your business? Because it's all the same. All the businesses is a roll up of all the activities and the results of all the people that are in the business. And one of the things I want to mention about this, because I know most of you are business owners, I think it's very important that you let everyone know that everyone is on commission. Now, you can say you get paid a salary or you get paid hourly, that's fine. But it's important for them to understand that the revenues that the company brings in create profits, and people get paid out of the profit. So everyone's getting paid commission because they're getting paid out of the profits of the company. It's just called something different. So it's important for them to know that everyone's in sales. Most times, people inside the office touch the customer a whole lot more than the salespeople do. So that customer service, the level of response, the follow up, the professionalism, all those kind of things, the courtesy are critical because again, their salary or their hourly wage or however they're paid really is a commission based on how well the company does. It's just not called that. So if it's explained to the people in your company that they are part of the results of the company, then I think it's helpful for them to see themselves maybe in a little different light. So here's a some potential potholes in the plan. These are areas that you need to make sure you are aware of because it can discombobulate your whole map, your monthly activity plan and your path to success. The first thing is bad data. This is when I was talking about understanding the difference between a suspect and a prospect when you're recording the activity requirements that you need. Because if it's wrong or if it's done without the fine tuning of what's a qualified prospect, then all the rest of the numbers are going to be just no good. It's not going to work, and people will lose faith in the process, and they'll stop doing it, and then you'll be just back to square one. It'll just be a lot of arithmetic. So make sure that whatever it is accurate, even if it's bad results. It is what it is. At some point, it's going to be consistent, and when it gets consistent, then you can use it to manage people and manage your business. The thing about running your business is you want to understand where your business is coming from, like I mentioned. So if there is a way to monitor uh, where the revenue is coming from each month, then each month you should have a pretty good idea of what your expectations are. And when they're not reached, then you can dig down into that part and see, okay, what did we miss? What's had the title, it said, don't be common, be great. It's easy to get caught up in all the everyday emergencies that happen in a business. But if you're not managing to results, if you're not managing to a target, you just kind of end up getting what you get and hope it gets better on its own, and typically that doesn't happen. Another pothole is unrealistic goals. You can go in and saying, okay, well, we did 1 million this year and we're at 5 million next year. Well, I don't know if that's realistic. Hopefully it would be, but it's pretty ambitious. Uh, your goals should be based on the results that people have had and what they expect to come from those results for the next year. And then you roll that plan up to get a realistic goal for your company. Uh, the goal should not be something that's just, I call it PFA, pulled from air. You should have a planning meeting, get your employees involved, get their input. Maybe you got some new products coming online. Maybe you got some new services coming online. Where's that business going to be sold? What's the revenue? The more people you can involve in these planning sessions, the better, because they're going to feel like they're valued and that they're going to be making a realistic input to uh, the results of your company. So don't dismiss your uh, your staff. The next bullet point I'd like to mention is lack of management support. If you're going to create a plan for your business, you need to own it as much as your team does and help it be accomplished because, the company itself is all going after the same goal, hopefully. And most employees want to do a good job. They want to be recognized for doing a good job. And they appreciate the fact that they're part of a team, and the way that gets solidified is with good, strong management support. Again, I use the sports analogy that, sometimes great players get into a rut and they need the coaches to help bring them out of that and bring them back to where they're more comfortable being successful. So, management needs to be managers and help people understand that there is a way to improve and that you will give them the support they need and the direction that will help them accomplish their personal goals, which will also help the company achieve its business goals. And the last one on this pothole list is no commitment to see the plan through. We're getting near the end of the year here, and in the next month or so, you're going to see loads of ads on television and on the internet for Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem and all these other weight loss plans because they know this is when people set this goal to lose weight in the new year. Well, typically, they also know that probably by March, most of the people have already trashed the plan because the commitment is not made for yourself and for your business and really for your family. It's critical that you own the plan and commit to see it through. It's easy to just give up and forget about it and just slide back. But remember, don't be common, be great. And from what I've seen over the years, the difference isn't that big. A lot of times I've had people that were in sales that were having kind of a tough time and they were really working hard, but the business just didn't come on the time frame that they hoped it would. And they ended up cashing in their chips and going to do something else. And they quit right when the business was going to turn in their favor. And the next person that came in had a deluge of business they couldn't even keep up with because the opportunities had been created. It's just that they weren't willing to see the plan through and wait for it to happen. And unfortunately, the customer's time frame is not necessarily the business's time frame, but in truth, if you continue, it will come your way. One of my managers used to tell me, just keep chopping wood because you need a fire. And the only way to light the fire is to have enough wood. So just keep chopping wood. And that's really a good, simple phrase to live by is, fire yourself at night and hire yourself in the morning and just keep going. It'll make a difference in your success rate. Here's some recommendations that I would make. These are people that have done great things and accomplished things. And Lou Holtz, for some of you, again, it's a sports analogy that may not know who Lou Holtz is. He's about 5'7". He weighs 135 pounds. He's got Coke bottle thick glasses, and he talks with a lisp. And he's retired now, but I went to a seminar he was presenting, and he was talking about his challenge in life, one of the many challenges. And he said he had just gotten married, and he had been the equipment manager for William and Mary College, and it was right around Christmas time. Their season was over, and his wife was pregnant, and he got fired. He had no job. I don't even know if William and Mary had a football team now, but they did then. And so he basically either failed or lost his job. So he got fired, and his wife was pregnant. So he was telling the story, and he lifted a yellow pad up. And this is why you involve a trusted associate, wife, husband, anybody that you trust that believes in you. And he took the yellow pad out and he was holding it up while he was giving the talk. And he sat down, he said to his wife, let's write down the 100 things that we want to accomplish in the rest of our life. Now, remember, he just lost his job. His wife's pregnant. He's got no money coming in, and he's going to write down his goals. Kind of a tough time to do it, but he said, well, why not? I didn't have any place to go tomorrow, so let's do these. And what he said was he wrote these down, and they weren't just like and one of the goals on the championship. Now remember, glasses and talks won the national championship. And I don't really need to tell you who the coach was. It was Lou Holtz. So he lifted the page up and flipped it over and said, "We're working on our second 100." So what I did myself is I went home with my wife and we did kind of the same thing. And many of the goals that we wrote down, and this was probably 30 years ago, we've achieved. Now, we might have achieved them anyway, but the fact that we did it together with something that meant a goal for both of us, the payoff is enormous to this day. And that's why I like to tell that story because it worked for me. And all the things that I'm talking to you about, I've either personally done or continue to do today because it works. It takes the unknown factor out of success. Take personal ownership of the required activity. If it's to be, it's up to me. Uh, Sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Sometimes you don't like making those extra contacts. Sometimes you don't feel like going to a network event. Sometimes you don't feel like reading product information. Sometimes you don't feel like studying up on your competition. Sometimes you don't feel like recruiting for your business to hire new people. But it, the success will come. It just you just gotta own it. Ask for management inspection. If you have a subordinate, make sure that they're understanding you know what you're talking about, and that they're going to take a personal interest in your. Don't other people. Uh, most people are not optimistic. It's easy to be pessimistic and to take a negative attitude about things. The interesting thing is, you know, 90% of the people that you tell your problems to don't really care about them. And in truth, the other 10% are probably deep down inside kind of happy that you got the problem. So nobody wants to hear about your issues or, what's wrong. And uh, you need to get away from those people. We got Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up here soon. You're probably going to run into a lot of people and they're going to give you advice, and a lot of it is probably not what you want to hear. So you got to be bold. You got to believe in yourself. Uh, what's good for them isn't good for you. That's why you want to make that Lou Holtz list, and then get singularly focused and get motivated. And the final thing is to be true to yourself. In life, all you got is what you got, and don't do it for other people. Uh, be be what you want to be. If you want to be something that is not glamorous, then be it. Because you want to be happy. You want to be happy with yourself. You want to be happy with your family. You want to be happy at the end of your days. So be true to yourself and be honest with yourself and decide what you're passionate about because that's what will motivate you. And think about what your passion is, and then try to find a way to monetize it. And you may surprise yourself on the results, not only personally but for your business. So, lastly, I want to thank the providers, the Small Biz Better training seminars here and their workshops. And again, my name is Mike Smith. My company is Sales Coaching One, the number one. And what we do is we provide sales and business training and also recruiting for business, for sales, for administrative, for C-level people. Companies since 2005, so we're 15 years old just about. My LinkedIn is Mike Smith. Website is salescoaching1.com.